Hey folks, Tim the Toolman here, Car Show and Tell. We're back again. I know it's been a few weeks since we last made a video. It's summertime, so we've been out having a good time, doing some fun things. Not so much working on cars, which can be fun until it's not. So, we're back again working on the Kia, our free Kia, Project Freya, and hopefully this will be the last series of installments of repairs. We basically got everything else worked out. I know the last video I put up was when I was welding up the passenger side rocker panel, and it got late and I just wanted it finished up, so I turned the camera off and finished everything up. So hopefully you'll forgive me for that. Sometimes I just get tired of filming and I want to get the thing finished. So we did get all that welded up, did manage to finagle the rocker panel into place, finish welding all of it, and ground all the welds down, threw some this thin coat of body filler over the rocker, sanded that all smooth, and finished it with some primer and some paint, and it doesn't look too bad. We can go take a look at it. I think it came out pretty nice. It's dirty because I've been driving it, but the rocker looks pretty good. You can see our seam where we started, and all the welds got ground out nice and flat and smooth, and threw some rattle can paint on it. It was a pretty close match. Like I said, it's a cheap car. I'm not getting it professionally painted, so that's finished up. And the only other problem that we had was with the air conditioning. The air conditioning didn't function. Blower motor runs, that's fine, but turn the air conditioning on and we didn't get any cold air. So I already took the liberty of assessing what we need to do. I hooked up a gauge set, okay, to the high and the low side of the system, and was not really surprised to find that there was no refrigerant pressure in the system at all. So like I said, this thing had set for 10 years, so I had imagined that all of that pressure had found its way out somewhere in a leak, and it's probably occupying space in the hole in the ozone layer somewhere. That being said, there's no refrigerant in, so I wanted to test the compressor and see if it would turn over. A low buck way of doing that is to disconnect the connector to the compressor and use a test lead and give it 12 volts positive to see if you can hear the clutch engage. So I did that with the vehicle off, and I could hear the compressor clutch, I could hear it pull in when I gave it 12 volts. You can hear it. So I disconnected my test lead from the battery, started the car, let it idle, and tried testing it again, and just to see if I could turn the compressor over a few revolutions and see if it's spinning, and it's not. It's locked up. All I was rewarded with was a bunch of belt squeal. The compressor kicked in, locked up the pulley, and the belt just squealed. It didn't spin at all. So after determining the compressor's locked up, I figured it's basically time to rebuild the entire air conditioning system. So this will be the last installment for this car. It'll probably be a series of 3 videos. First will be the disassembly. The second video will be cleaning and flushing of various air conditioning components. And then the third video will be reassembling the system, pulling it down in a vacuum, recharging it, and testing its operation. So we're going to start off with the disassembly today. So grab a pen and paper if you want to write down the steps. You guys can follow along. So what we got here,
Oh, sorry.
got our compressor down here. We got our air conditioning lines going in and out of it. There's our pulley. We're going to have to remove that. We're going to have to remove our condenser, which is down here in front of the radiator. We're going to have to remove our air conditioning lines that go back to our evaporator. So it's probably going to result in getting a bunch of other components out of the way before we can do that. And the first thing we're going to get out of the way is this air intake system. And we're going to move our radiator and see if we can get the condenser out without removing the radiator and making a big mess with coolant. So we got 3 bolts. I'm going to take a clamp off here, loosen that and remove it, slide it back, get this hose off. There's 3 bolts that hold our air intake to the fender. I'm sorry, to the wheel well. If I can see, there's one down there, and there's 2 more. One here, and another one here. So we're going to pause this, we're going to remove this, and we'll pick back up. Button?
Yep. We're going.
Okay. One thing I forgot. The connectors for our air intake sensor and our idle mass airflow sensor and our little diagnostic port here. I'm going to remove the fasteners and the plugs for that to get it out of the way. And this whole thing should come up and out. Get up there. All right. All right. Next thing we got to do is remove this plastic cover over top of our condenser and get that out of the way.
Pause.
And pause it. Okay, over here. So we got our plastic out of the way. We got to get this piece of the radiator support out. Looks like 3 bolts at this end, a bolt for our horn, a couple bolts for our hood latch, bolt for our fan, 3 more bolts on this end. And this centerpiece should lift out of the way so we can get our condenser. And we're going to have to find a new and interesting way to hold our hood up. So I might take this off too and prop it some other
I have an
place.
idea.
Okay?
Alright. 3, 2, 1, let's go.
Okay, so we got this piece off. We have to press the retainers that hold the wiring to the bottom side of it to remove the connector for our hood open switch. We have access to our condenser. There's a mount on either side here and down there that I think I can get to with a 10 millimeter to just remove the
Right
condenser
there, and there's
itself.
2 bolts right there.
All right. So I think I can just remove the condenser itself without having to remove the radiator. Removing the radiator in this is kind of a bear, so I'd like to avoid that if I can. Removing this condenser is going to be a bear one way or the other. And I'm going to have to remove a couple of connections, refrigerant line connections here and probably here to get the condenser free once the mounts.
This connection right here.
Once the mounts are
And there's
free of their
one.
fasteners.
There's one down,
Okay.
straight down.
Now, I wanted to say a word about refrigerant for a moment. I've already established with the use of my gauge set that there is no refrigerant pressure in the system remaining. There's no refrigerant. If there's no pressure, there is minimal refrigerant left in the system.
Minimal to none.
Minimal to none, which is what I am thinking fried the compressor in the first place. Like I said, I tested it with a test lead and it's locked up. More than likely, it's locked up because of lack of lubrication. If the refrigerant gets low, if the refrigerant in the system gets low, the refrigerant's carried, I'm sorry, the lubrication for the compressor is carried by the refrigerant. And if the refrigerant level drops, the lubrication level drops as well. So that may be the reason that this compressor is locked up. It may be just because it sat for 10 years and corroded inside. We don't know. long story short is I've already got new components to put in.
So we're not going to try to fix
I'm
this
not going to
one.
bother. My son had asked me, why don't we remove the compressor and see if we can free it up? I'm not going to bother. I think it's probably locked up due to lubrication failure. So I'm not even going to try to mess with it. Another thing is, if there was still refrigerant pressure remaining in the system, you are not allowed by law to vent that to the atmosphere. You must have that refrigerant recovered with a recovery machine. If you don't have a recovery machine, you can have a technician recover the refrigerant that's remaining in the system and return the vehicle to you in that state, and then you can make the repairs yourself and charge it, or take it back to the shop and have the refrigerant charged. Of course, they're going to charge you for their labor and their time, but it would still be less money than having them make the total repair. They probably won't warranty the work, but it is a trade-off. You want to save a little money up front, then you can do the work yourself and have a technician handle the refrigerant recovery and charging. So, that being said, we see our mounts. I'm going to get to those fasteners and remove them, and I'm going to remove the liquid line, the gas, the high pressure, high temperature connection, and the high pressure liquid connection, and try to get this condenser out of here. So let's see how that goes. Okay. Okay, picking up where we left off. Got the condenser out. It's dirty, needs cleaned, but it looks to be serviceable. I can clean it up and reuse it. Took the fasteners out of the mount here and here. Disconnected the line from the return line of the compressor right here. Return line of the compressor and the line from our filter or our dryer accumulator, and then carefully turn this thing and kind of wiggle it and got it up out of there. So our radiator's still in place. You haven't disturbed that.
Back to parts and pieces.
There was an evaporative canister that sat right here.
There's right there.
Disconnected the hoses to that, removed it, and got the bracket out of the way so I could get some wrenches in here and get to these fittings and unfasten them. The threads are aluminum, so just try to be careful. But anyway, that's up and out of the way. So the next component I think I'm going to go for is this accumulator / dryer down here on the frame rail. I can disconnect the bracket and get that up and out of the way. Okay.
3.
Alright, so got the accumulator dryer out. There's one electrical connection that had to be undone. Got that and its bracket out of the way. Up until this point, everything's been held together with 10mm fasteners. I removed the refrigerant lines over here leading to and from our compressor. So I got those out of the way.
Man, that thing looks shiny under
At
that
this
crap.
point, I can loosen the bolt. There's a bolt in the center of our AC compressor belt tensioner pulley. I have to loosen that bolt, and then I can turn the pulley in, turn the tensioner in, and relieve the tension on this belt. And then we can begin removing our AC compressor and getting it out of here now that we've got the room to work. So that's our next step. Oh, one thing I did forget to mention, I also removed the auxiliary cooling fan that was mounted in the front here in order to get to the fasteners that held the condenser on the passenger side of the car.
There.
Okay,
Yeah.
right here,
Yeah.
over here. It was back up, back out. There's a fan right here, had 3 bolts, removed those, and its connector, and then got to these fasteners. Okay? Awesome.
Okay.
Alright, so we got our tensioner loosened, got our belt off. This is,
Guess
seen better days, so we're going to
replace it.
pick up a new one for that. There's 4 bolts. They're 12 millimeter, 12 millimeter bolts to hold our compressor on.
Do you want me to this way?
Here? No.
No.
Here. And then 2 directly underneath that at the bottom. One here and one here. So, you take those bolts out. And we disconnected our compressor clutch.
So now if we hit the button anymore, it won't squeal at us.
There's all 4 bolts. And then this lifts right up and out. Here's our old compressor. Out of the way. There is a manifold on top that we're going to have to clean up and reuse on our new compressor. So we'll take that off and go about cleaning that up when I do the video for all the component cleanup. Okay? We're going to set this off to the side. And
Pause.
Nope.
Jeez, Dad, your hands. Are you sure you don't want to go inside and wash them?
So, the next thing that I want to do is these refrigerant lines that run back here along the inner fender and go back into our evaporator core. I want to remove those so that they can be cleaned and flushed. If this compressor went bad when the vehicle was previously running, it could have contaminated the system. So
Just making sure.
that's why I'm getting everything out of here. The condenser, the evaporator, the lines. Or I'm sorry, the evaporator will stay in place. I'm going to flush that in place. But the lines I can remove and flush them out of the car. The condenser I can flush out of the car. So we're going to get these lines out. Next means I'm going to have to remove our windshield washer fluid tank and probably have to remove the battery. One word of caution: when you're removing a battery, don't remove the positive lead first. Remove the negative lead first.
Always first.
Okay? That way.
If the positive touches any metal, it'll short the car.
That's right. It's going to throw sparks and maybe fry things. So we don't want that. Okay?
Pause.
You ready?
We're ready. We're rolling already.
Okay, so got my lines out. There are 2 bolts that hold these on. I'm sorry, 2 nuts. I don't know what you want to call
To
them.
the firewall, right?
That hold them to the evaporator core.
I'm done.
Just a couple of these little nuts here with the serrations on the back. So I don't know what you call them. I call them whiz nuts. Just a couple of whiz nuts. Remove them from
Always
these studs.
wondered
And
me
then
what they did.
there's plastic retainers here and here that these lines are clipped into. So just pull them gently out of those plastic containers and then slide them towards the front of the car, and you can wiggle them up and out. So here's our lines, and this is as far as we're going to tear the system down. We've basically got everything but the evaporator removed. And like I said before, we're going to be cleaning and flushing all of the lines and components that we're going to reuse to make sure that the system is internally clean and we don't get any past contaminants, metal shavings, etc. mixed up into our new system where they could potentially do more damage and ruin the new components.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want to try to prevent by removing all of this stuff and cleaning it. Another important reason that I've removed all of this stuff too is that because all of these components are O-ring fittings here. There's an O-ring that goes in here in this connection. O-rings here, here, O-rings. Well, this is a flared fitting, but well, let me look. I lie. Well, one of these. Yep, this is an O-ring fitting. This is an O-ring fitting. They're all basically O-ring fittings. After some time, those O-rings can wear out. They don't seal. So I do have, on top of a new accumulator dryer, a new compressor, I have new O-rings and gaskets for the entire system, so that I can replace all of those and have our new system perfectly sealed and ready for service again. Along with replacing the compressor, whenever you've opened up your air conditioning system, you want to replace your receiver dryer. Okay, these components, when exposed to moisture, will
Tend to corrode and.
well, no, the moisture will build up inside, and you're gonna have a wet system. You cannot have any moisture or outside air in your air conditioning system. Any kind of moisture, outside air, outside contaminants will react with the refrigerants and the lubricants in the system and create acids and all sorts of nasties inside of there. There's also
Bacteria.
heat the system and cause damage and cause it to fail prematurely. So that is also one reason why we're replacing the receiver dryer. I have a new receiver dryer. It's in the box. I am not going to remove any of the caps until this new receiver dryer is installed and I'm putting the system back together. I don't want to open that up and expose it to any atmospheric moisture, because the desiccant that's inside of this receiver dryer, that's designed to dry out the air conditioning system, is going to soak up that moisture. Okay, so what little moisture we do get inside when we're reassembling everything is hopefully going to get soaked up by our new dryer and won't make a difference. Like I said, but we can go to precautions by not opening the new component prematurely, not till we're ready to install everything, get the system sealed up, and then immediately put our gauges and our vacuum pump on and pull everything down into a vacuum. Okay, but we'll go into more about that later. For right now, we are done. We're gonna wrap this up. It's been Car Show and Tell. I'm Tim the Tool Man. I'd like to thank Henry the Tool Son, my assistant.
Hi.
And that'll be it. Like, subscribe. Hope you learned something today, what to do, or maybe what not to do. All right, guys. If you want to like, subscribe, to hit the thumbs up or bell or something like that. Apparently that
Like
lets
button.
YouTube know that I'm doing a good job. So if you think I'm doing a good job, let somebody know.
Like and subscribe.
Feel free to drop a comment, any questions. I'll try to help you out as best I can. Okay, guys? Gals? Take care.